What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Facts on the Ground. I'm Jesse Zerwell, and I'm joined, as always, by my co host, Misty Winston. And we are psyched to have back on the show today a former guest, always a good guest. Excuse the Roomba going crazy in the background. Robbie Jaeger is with us once again, and he is a writer. He is the lead financial uh, researcher and reporter for the MCSC network. He's been doing a lot of great investigative work on the Colonial Pipeline spillage and neglect, which we're going to catch up with him on that today. But first, I'd like to start with the reporting you've been doing on Nancy Pelosi. And can you just get into all of that dirty dealing or dirty dealings, one should say?
Right, sure. So, first of all, thanks for having me back on, guys. It's always great to come back.
My
I feel like,
Twitter husband.
oh, yes, my Twitter wife. Yes, good to see you, looking beautiful as always. Um, but Jesse, it's funny every time I come on here, I feel like we have like something or another crash the interview. First, it was I believe it was your stepdaughter or girlfriend's. We had, and then
Mhm.
she, yeah, and
Yeah,
then the Roomba, now the Roomba.
my girlfriend's
Yeah.
daughter. Yeah.
And there was
Yeah,
a
okay.
kitten
Yeah.
just before we started.
And
There
then
was a
the
kitten
kitten.
going apeshit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, we're chatting a lot
It's
of
a crazy
energy
life.
here. Uh, but no, it's always great to be back with you guys. So the Pelosi stuff, right? That's obviously, if if there's anybody out here that just became aware of me, it's probably because of that. Uh, so here's the thing: even though that it was big news whenever I broke it, it's just another link in the chain. It's just another uh, step in the long pattern of just Nancy Pelosi playing the market against the government. And so the long and short of what just happened is what I reported was Nancy Pelosi picked up to $10 million in Microsoft shares of stock around March 19th. Well, my report was basically like, hey, I mean, not only does Microsoft, they got numerous government contracts last year, uh, but also a week or two after that they picked up those 10 million, that $10 million of Microsoft, the Pentagon announced that there was a $22 billion contract awarded to Microsoft for augmented reality headsets, about 120,000 of them to be used for training by the U.S. military. And of course, Microsoft stock jumped on that news and has gone up ever since. It's actually up 25. Well, I actually haven't checked today's price, but at the last time I checked, it was up around $25 a share
Hmm.
since the date of Pelosi's investment. Um, but then something was brought to my attention by Sludge, the publication, online publication Sludge, uh, and they brought to my attention that just a few weeks prior to Pelosi disclosing or making this purchase with Microsoft, uh, actually she was on the committee that actually stripped an amendment out of HR 1 that that would have forced members of Congress and their spouses to either liquidate all of their stock holdings or put them in some kind of blind trust or something or another like that. Uh, and of course, that amendment was quickly and swiftly removed from discussion because we can't have that. Like, I mean, because as we know, guys, you see the memes all the time on Twitter. The question is always asked, if the salary for a congresswoman or a congressman or woman is, like $174,000 a year, how does Nancy Pelosi have a net worth of like $115 million after her, even though she's been in Congress for forever? How does that math work out? And this is how. She's showing you how. Every time she files a financial disclosure, you see, I mean, wow, she doesn't make bad trades, guys. I think the worst trade, like honestly, I think the worst trade she made, the biggest opportunity she missed was she tried to take advantage uh, of the pandemic during the crash. This is right at the beginning of the lockdowns in early last year, And which I've always like that's the most craven type of opportunism,
Yes.
isn't it? So she throws a bunch of money into Slack, and obviously she should have picked Zoom, or she'd have made a hell of a lot more money. But honestly, that's what that was. That's why you timed that. She didn't have any interest in that company until the pandemic came along, and it was like, okay, this is obviously the technology that's going to be used going forward. And here's the thing, guys, and this is where all of this kind of comes into like a broader issue, is that, I mean, I know what you guys are going to say when I ask you this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Should members of Congress be allowed to trade stocks?
No.
No.
No, it's ridiculous. This is ridiculous, you guys. The fact that members of Congress who have relationships with lobbyists and who have inside information, I mean, it's no different than when she invested money in Tesla right before Joe Biden announces that the government's going to all electric cars. I mean, she's going to make a shitload of money off of that, and that is it's legalized insider trading essentially. I mean, this is something that she and others in Congress have done their best to make it legal. I mean, it reminds me of like the cattle futures with Hillary Clinton, or like Whitewater, and Hillary Clinton caught shit for that, and they have very much learned their lesson from that, and now it's just okay. It's okay for them to do that, and it's really fucking weird that it's allowed. Of course, it's not surprising because the people who write these laws are the ones who are benefiting from it. So, of course, they're going to write these laws, and of course, they're going to protect those laws. But I find it interesting. I mean, I saw you talking about this with Combo Couch, but I kind of wanted to bring it up again. If somebody is appointed to Joe Biden's cabinet, they have to divest. Like, they have to divest from these companies and, do the right thing and distance themselves. But members of Congress don't have to. That's insane to me.
Yeah, it's a weird little like discrepancy, you would think. So the U.S. Office of Governmental Ethics actually requires cabinet members and presidential appointees or presidential nominees, anything that has to be confirmed by the Senate. It requires them to not only sign ethics agreements, which we know how that goes, but part of those ethics agreements actually require, in most cases, these nominees to divest from to divest their stock holdings, and at least put them in like what Janet Yellen did. Janet Yellen made a ton of money divesting from all of her stocks or right after she was confirmed as treasurer. But she put them all into an index fund. And for those who don't know what that basically is, it's instead of investing in one particular company, you're investing in probably dozens of particular companies, usually all in the same sector, like tech or aerospace or whatever. And so whenever one industry, it's not just you're investing in an industry, more or less, instead of just one company, which I guess is a better way to do it, because you're not picking out individual companies and saying, okay, this is the one that I'm going to invest in. It's still problematic because, quite honestly, you should just have to sell it all off, and you can reinvest whenever you're done. That's the way I feel about it. Because then you just eliminate all the conflicts of interest. If you want to be a public servant, I don't care about your desire to play the stock market and free enterprise and all that. You want to be a public servant, which means that you need to work off a government salary, and you can get back to your petty capitalism as soon as you're done.
Well, and you
being in
can't
government.
serve the public if you have those kinds of conflicts of interest. You can't.
Exactly.
You cannot, because you are then going to be more concerned about your own stock portfolio and how you can benefit yourself than you are about doing the right thing for the people. That's just human nature. Like, that's not saying that any one of the, and I think all of these people are bad people, but I'm not saying that any of them, like, that's just, but seriously, if you have a vested interest financially in certain things, there's no way you're going to be looking out for the public over yourself. I mean, come on, that's just ridiculous. I don't know why this is a thing that's allowed and why people aren't talking about it more. And this is not just Nancy Pelosi. We should bring that up. It's not, she's the one that's kind of the most, well, not even the most craven. I think maybe just the most public. Like, everybody already hates her, so it's easy to go after her. But this is like across the board. Republicans, Democrats, they all do it. All of them.
Yeah, and part of her constituency is the city of San Francisco, which has one of the most atrocious homelessness problems in the country. And nothing represents that disconnect disconnect you were just talking about, Misty, I think more than that, Nancy Pelosi rolling in millions and people starving and dying on the streets.
Living
And
in
I really
tents.
living in tents if they're even lucky enough to get a tent. And it really highlights the nexus between the US government and capitalism and profit and the power that comes with that. The prestige is gone. Nobody cares about their reputation anymore as long as they have the power and the money. But I think this situation with Pelosi is so bald-faced. But as you said, it's just become accepted. It's become de rigueur. And yeah, I'd like you to respond to that. But let me just unplug this Roomba because it's driving me crazy.
No, I'm actually
My
looking
cat,
at
the
something.
cat has left me alone. That's good.
All right, I'll be right back.
Yeah, but I mean, it's I just saw a thing in Forbes today where like the billionaires. I can't find it now, but like the billionaires have brought in like a ridiculous Bloomberg has brought in like another $11 billion during the pandemic, and that's crazy. Like the fact that, and it's demonstrable. Like we can see it. That the billionaires are taking in all of this money, and literally people are starving and dying and losing their houses. They can't afford to go to the doctor. And Mike Bloomberg's pulling in $11 billion doing nothing. He's not doing anything for that money.
No, absolutely not. And here's the thing too, Misty, is like this is such a multi-layered problem. Like on the ground level, like you mentioned, Pelosi and the Tesla. She's got perfect timing. Just so happens to have
Right?
all this great timing on
She's
these.
very lucky.
She hits on Tesla. As I broke the news back in October of 2020, they hit on probably one of the best investments they've made so far, which was CrowdStrike, when they placed a massive investment in CrowdStrike late last year. And look, I mean, they've and another one, and I'm about to highlight something here, as you mentioned, like lobbyists near the beginning of our discussion. And this is just how the web of conflict of interest. This is why I report on this stuff. And some of this stuff may not seem important right when I report it, but a couple of months later, you might be able to go back to something that I've reported and be like, oh, this makes a little bit more sense. And one of these things here is that, obviously, you mentioned San Francisco, Jesse. That is the base, that's the headquarters of cloud software company Salesforce. Well, Nancy Pelosi has a really close relationship with Salesforce. I mean, she attends some of their many of their corporate events and speaks at them as well, free of charge, of course. And but see, just recently, also, I should mention that she has at least $5 million or up to $5 million worth of investment as far as stock is concerned with the company as well. Well, as I reported back in early February, Salesforce has hired former Democratic representative from Virginia, Jim Moran, who actually served with Speaker Pelosi for like 24 years and is now with a huge, one of the biggest lobbying firms in the company or in the country named Nelson Mullins. So now they're going to lobby the Democratic led Congress, led by Speaker Pelosi, for government contracts. I mean, that's the purpose, to get the U.S. government to go to Salesforce for their government or for their cloud-based needs. I guess I'm stumbling over my words here. I apologize. But you get what I'm saying. It's a really, it's almost as if a lot of these things that, like this story in particular, like I reported, why does it matter? Because it's an obvious attempt of a corporation to exploit their very, very close relationship with a very, very powerful politician. They know that Speaker Pelosi goes to their events. They also know, I'm sure, that Speaker Pelosi has a very sizable investment in their company. And also, I'm very sure that they are aware that Congressman Moran, who served with Pelosi for over 2 decades, also probably has a very good relationship with Pelosi, and that sending him into Congress to whisper in her ear about, hey, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. How about next time a cloud-based contract comes up for grabs, you look our way. And here's the thing about this type of stuff, guys, is that it doesn't actually have to happen for it to be a story. I know that sounds crazy, but they want to pre-crime us to death.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the way I look at it: is that the opportunity for conflicts of interest, the opportunity for any kind of malfeasance on a financial level shouldn't even exist in the first place, right? Everything I just described to you is 100% legal, and it's 100% something that happens all the time. And even if there is nothing nefarious afoot there, the optics is what is telling you that how can you trust your government when it looks at every turn? If you're really not doing anything wrong here, then you should have no problem saying, I can't. Then, you know what I'm saying? You should have no problem reforming this system. These are things that should not be legal. Like, we should have, obvious. Let's just start with divesting from
Mm-hmm.
all. If you want to be, like I said, if you want to be a public servant, you should have to live off of the taxpayer given salary, and that's it. You work for us.
Yes.
You don't work for Microsoft. You don't work for Salesforce. And you also mentioned that, yeah, this isn't just with Speaker Pelosi. This goes last year, very prominent cases. Senators Perdue, Senator Loeffler, Richard Burr. They all were accused of insider trading, but it's not insider trading. It's 100% legal. But even though if it was one of us, we would definitely go to prison. But
100%.
yeah, because I mean, they're
The
sitting in
FBI would be at my door right now.
they're sitting in rooms that we'll never be able to go into,
Mm-hmm.
talking to people we'll never meet about stuff we'll never know about. And then they're taking that information. All it would take is Nancy Pelosi to come home from work one day and over dinner tell her husband and talk about work as married couples often do, and casually mention, yeah, I met a Microsoft rep today, blah, blah, blah. And then all it would take is the next day for her husband to go to work because he's a hedge fund manager, and boom, 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 make a couple of quick little moves, and then watch the money roll in hand over fist, because that's what they've done in the past. And even the opportunity for that to be possible lets you know that there's a huge
It's a
problem with
huge problem. And
that's a huge
especially, and
problem.
I'm not saying that any congressperson should be able to do this, but Nancy Pelosi isn't just any congressperson. She's the Speaker
No.
of the House, which means she is having intimate conversations about these issues. She is very much in the know about all of these things. Like when she bought Tesla, she knew that Joe Biden was going to go all electric. Like that's clearly. I mean, she will deny it if she's asked about it for sure. Oh no, of course I didn't know. Like I was just, she's lucky. She's really good at just guessing. But she knows what's going on, and so she's able to use that information to her full benefit. And you're right that we can't call it insider trading because technically it's not, but it kind of is. I mean,
Right.
it's like the most insider of insider tradings.
It is for
These are
you or
government
I.
officials.
And
Yeah.
I think a huge precedent was set when Amazon was selected to provide the server for the CIA and for the Pentagon. And I don't know if it was the CIA, but definitely the Pentagon.
CIA. It was the CIA, and then Jeff Bezos sat on a Department of Defense board. I don't know if he's still on one or not, but yes, it's the CIA. He has a $600 million contract.
And I think that
cloud
set a huge
services.
precedent and sent a message to Congress people. Not that they haven't been doing this for decades now, but really now it's no holds barred. And even if it's flagrantly in front of the public, it doesn't matter because it's legal, because we say it's legal.
Mm-hmm. Well, they write the laws.
Right.
How nice would it be to be able to write the laws that you could use to personally enrich yourself? That's great. That's a great
Right.
job.
But I mean, look,
It's insane.
this is something that lately, every time I report on something like this, it's always to this day, which blows my mind because we're a quarter of the way through the new year, and I'm still getting now do Trump in my replies whenever I report on something pertaining to like Nancy Pelosi or something like that, or Biden
I don't know
or
if you guys
whatnot.
know this, but Trump isn't president anymore.
But
And when people
it's
say that, it's like, fuck you, you do it.
right.
Yeah.
And
Right?
it's been done. That's the problem, is that I'm
Right.
not going to do it because it's been done. I'm
Take
not
that.
interested. I'm not interested in doing I'm not interested in reporting the same thing that everybody else is. I'm more interested in finding the stuff that nobody else has found yet, and bringing attention to that. So I mean, if anything, I want them to be coming to me, looking at my timeline for stories, not the other way around. To quite honest with you,
Well,
because
we should
they all have
mention
this hive
that
mind.
happens a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure
People
it
steal
does.
stories from Robbie all the time. Let's be honest. People steal stories from Robbie all the time.
I mean,
So do
but here's
credit
the
to
thing.
Robbie.
But here's the thing, though. It's like again, we all know that there's so much of the GOP is absolutely corrupt, and because. But is it really a surprise to see,
No,
whenever you look at a financial disclosure for a Republican congressman, and you see oil investments, is that a story or not? No,
no.
it's not, because that falls directly in line with the Republican, political way of thinking. More often than not. More often than not. I'm not going to say that there aren't my fiscal or political finance conservatives out there that really want to see campaign finance reform, because there are. There are actually a lot more than people might actually think, because they are also, a lot of conservatives also share the view that a lot of progressives do, in the fact
Hmm.
that corporations run this country, and they're 100% right. I mean, this is a common ground issue. Campaign finance reform is, and political finance in general. If you want corporations to stop running the country, then you need to ban your politicians from investing in them while they're in office. Because, like I said, it's the snake that eats itself. And then when you insert lobbyists into the deal, say it's somebody that, like I said, I used to work with Nancy Pelosi for over 20 years. Pulling her aside for a conversation is going to be no problem at all. You know what I mean? And of course, if Salesforce, a couple, like later on this year, say Salesforce gets a pretty sizable contract, just like Microsoft does, um, you know, it, people are going to rightfully ask questions. Well, how did they get this contract? Well, it's from the lobbying. It's from the
Hmm.
lobbying. It's from all of the connections. It's from people purposely exploiting those connections. So I mean, look, the blind trust idea for politicians isn't enough for me. It's not, because like I said, Ro Khanna has plenty of blind trusts, right? And the people
His wife
managing,
is filthy rich.
she is filthy rich, and you know what? A lot of people may or may not know this, but at the beginning of the pandemic, whoever was running his accounts was trying to take advantage of the pandemic economy just as much as Nancy Pelosi was, buying up a shit ton of Pfizer, buying up a ton of DuPont, who makes PPE gear, and of course he played it off as that's my wife's money. I can't tell her what to do with her money and stuff like that. And we don't make our own financial calls. And you know what? I believe the last part about, like, do I expect like Ro Khanna or his wife to be personally managing their hundreds of investments across like their like dozen accounts? Probably not. Okay, I'm assuming they pay somebody to do that for
For
them.
sure.
But as John Kerry just proved to us, and we can, this circles us back all the way back to the beginning with the presidential nominees having to divest. As John Kerry just showed us, even though he's got a filthy rich wife as well, the heiress to the Heinz family fortune, he managed to talk her into divesting from over 400 companies across all of her uh, trust funds and stuff like that. Now they made a killing off of all of these divestments, but they divested nonetheless. So it just shows exactly what I said back then with the Ro Khanna story, and I'll say it again now. You are one of the most powerful, you're one of the most one of the most 600 powerful people in the country. You're a congressman, all right, and then of course you include everybody else in the government. But you're a U.S. government federal official. All it takes is a phone call to the company that manages your money, and at the very least, you could just tell them no more defense contractors, no more pharmaceutical companies, no more oil and gas companies. I mean, there are, I mean, to people that want to make you believe, politicians that want you to believe that they can't just do that. Like there aren't things that exist like that you can't, like that are so specific That you can, like, again, invest in just specific industries that don't have to be. How about you invest in the companies that you're supposed to help? How about you invest in the retail industry? How about you invest in the
Green
airline
energy,
industry? How about you
you
invest in
know.
stop investing in the banks and the pharmaceutical companies and the big tech companies. Like, there are ways around this. There's a million different options these politicians could be taking as far as how they invest their money, and they just make excuses when you call them out for it, which is why that give them an inch type thing just doesn't work here. You just got to say,
No.
if you want to be, how bad do you want to be a public servant? And do you want to be it for the right reason? If you really want to be a public servant for the right reason, well, then how bad? Because if you want it bad enough, you're going to have to divest all of your holdings that you have. And if
Well,
that's not
and
something you're willing to do,
Ro Khanna's excuse that, oh, it's my wife's money. Okay, okay. But you
He's
can't tell
such a
me that
nice
you
guy.
don't have conversations about how that money is used and how it's invested. Of course you do. You're married to her. Like, I have financial conversations with my husband all the time, and I'm nowhere near as rich as
right?
Ro Khanna. So it's ridiculous that he's like, oh, well, it's my wife's money. I have nothing to do with it. That's bullshit. You're a member of the Progressive Caucus. Like, you just, for optics sake, at least pretend to not
Right.
invest in, these shitty ass companies. Let's just pretend for a little bit. But the point that you make, that how bad do you want to be a public servant? I think most of these people want to be a public servant because they know it will make them filthy rich.
They're looking
I
at
think that,
Pelosi and like, hell
yeah,
yeah, I want to do what she's
we'll do
doing.
that. Hell yeah.
It's a sweet
Like,
gig if you can get it.
for sure. I mean, yeah, you have to sell your soul and all your morals and principles, but you'll be loaded by the end of the game. I mean, seriously, even the politicians who claim to not take, corporate money or whatever, they're set for life. Not only are they making the $174,000, they're going to have health care for the rest of their lives. They have a retirement fund for the rest of their lives. And once they leave office, book deals and all kinds of
Oh
back end
yeah.
stuff. I mean,
Now
all
we're
that
getting
stuff
money.
comes right back to you. I mean, look, President Obama, he left office and was like $65 million book deal, and he's getting all these like $500,000 speeching gigs. And I mean, it pours onto you. So even if you any member of the squad could leave public office, today, and they would be millionaires within a year. I mean, easily,
For
easily.
sure. For
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
AOC's memoir would be titled not like Hillary Clinton's What Happened. It would be AOC What Didn't Happen. All the things I didn't accomplish while in
Just be
Congress.
called. It
Oh,
would
she
just be
just made
called
a
violence.
video where she told us all about her very busy week.
Oh, okay. I haven't
Yeah,
had a
so
busy week ever. Must be
no.
a unique experience.
I mean,
Oh.
look, it's the political industrial complex. You
Hmm.
you go to off, you get in office, uh, you become a celebrity, you leave office. If you are a celebrity, you write a book, signing agent, do a bunch of paid speeches, make a killing for the rest of your life. Maybe get on the board of a nonprofit think tank or something somewhere. Get a little six-figure salary and just retire. If you're not a celebrity politician, you just retire and you become a lobbyist.
Yes, you go and
Um,
you work for a lobbying
so
firm.
you can
Exactly.
go
And you pull
back.
a Howard Dean.
Yep, and then you go back to DC and you talk to all your old buddies, and shoot the shit with them and try to get them to buy Raytheon missiles instead of whoever the fuck else, General Dynamics or whatever. And and they pay you a healthy sum for that. And then maybe one day you get back in office as like a cabinet appointment or like something like that, and it's how
A
DC makes money.
revolving door.
It's the most corrupt place on the planet. Uh, it's like some of the reporting I do is actually quite depressing. um,
I hear you,
because
dude.
I've never seen anything like that as far as money, like, and just seeing the amount of money that is coming through these corporations and these lobbyists and these congressmen and women. It's like sick, man, because you can't have health care and you can't have your student loans taken care of and you can't get $2,000 checks. But Nancy Pelosi can make a shit ton of money off of Microsoft. When it doesn't make sense. Nothing about any of this makes sense as to why it's actually allowed and why we as people, especially as citizens, like allow this to take place. Like,
And they invest in some of the most heinous companies around the world,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
at least in the U.S. The defense industries. Microsoft is nothing to write home about. I actually
No.
worked for them for a year under a contract, and it's basically a factory for producing capital through shitty technological applications. And getting to be a part of that culture and sort of being a misfit in it, because I have tattoos and I wouldn't wear a suit. I'd just wear like a nice shirt and jeans to work every day. I was always getting eyeballed for
Mm.
probably being not loyal to the company, which I wasn't. But what I mean to say is, yeah, they're investing in horrible companies that are pursuing huge sums of capital based on doing horrible things to people or providing shitty things to people.
These are the same companies that are keeping everybody poor. I mean, let's just
Yeah.
face it. Um, this is that's the goal, right? So that's the way I've kind of always looked at it. I try to rise above all the other like weird isms that can describe all of the conflicts that we have in this country. It really just comes down to it's class warfare. And the stock market, like the stock market is not the economy. We all know that. And anybody that can look around at their neighbor struggling to find food, and then looking at all of the green in the stock market, it just lets you know that that entire arena is full of basically full of sharks. It's a tiny swimming pool full of really large sharks. Like 80% of the money that flows through it belongs to like 1% of the people in it. So it's rigged against you from the get-go. We saw with the GameStop thing. Also, is why was GameStop's share price being why was it so low for so long, and why did this thing work the way it did? Well, it's because we somebody discovered about what the short selling thing, which is basically rigging that particular company. It's strangling that company's stock to where it won't move past a certain point, and the only time it will move is when you move it. So you're the only one really making the money off of it. And of course this happens all the time, but it's just an example. Is that these guys, it's not just the Amazons and the Microsofts and the Lockheed General Dynamics, even though, like I said, like I mean, those are great investments to make if you're a warmonger, a politician, because
If you can
missiles.
afford the share price.
But hey, you can if you're Nancy Pelosi, and you
Right.
Right.
can if you're Ro Khanna, and if you're making 174 grand a year, you definitely can. And like business is always going to be a booming with Raytheon, right? That's just the way, it's the nature of the beast. So I guess this class warfare that we have, is the whole point is to keep us all poor, right?
Yeah.
Because if we're all poor, we're all fighting each other for scraps. And while the 1% just get to sit back, and there's no heat on them because we're busy fighting each other for bare necessities, when they've got everything they ever need and all of the rules are in their favor. So I mean, this is just the Nancy Pelosi story, as in a vacuum, is just a story of, it's just another like I said, another link in the chain of a very long story, a very long chain of events of Nancy Pelosi being very opportunistic at the very least with how she plays the stock market, but it's also speaking to a greater issue at whole, as it does to why we have such corruption in this company, and while the 1%, the wealthy upper class of our country, continues to win over and over again. Like Misty said, I mean, the billionaires have made record profits during this
Yes.
pandemic, and it's
It's
off our
unbelievable.
backs.
It's
Mm,
unbelievable. It's disgusting, actually, in fact,
yeah.
because so many people have lost everything. And meanwhile, Mike Bloomberg is pulling in $11 billion extra while people are starving and losing their houses. It's so gross. But I know we have limited time with you, and I do want to get to Colonial because
Okay.
there's been another update. They have now had to revise their numbers yet again. They are apparently not very good at counting.
Yeah.
So tell us what you have as an update as far as that. Do we have like an actual figure yet, or are they still trying to figure that out?
Unfortunately, there is no new figure as of yet. So yesterday or a couple of days ago, I'm starting to lose track of time with this story because it's been going on for so long. But within the last couple of days, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality basically informed the public through a press release that Colonial Pipeline, I guess, called them up and basically said, "Hey, uh, not only are the numbers we gave you in January uh, alluding to the 1.2 million gallon estimate. Not only are those numbers no longer accurate, but neither is the model that we used to come up with those numbers. So that to me is just like, okay, so just here's the facts. It went from 63,000 gallons in August of last year to about 250,000 gallons, give or take, in November of last year. January of this year, we get the 1.2 million, right? And then now here we are in April, and they're saying that they need to come up with new numbers again. So this will be the fourth new number and the third time that they've had to revise their previous estimate, which the DEQ commissioner has actually she came out and slammed them pretty good, saying it's completely unacceptable that Colonial Pipeline has been unable to provide us accurate numbers over the course of the past 8 months.
Mhm.
Which is completely right. And she had a heavy-handed approach. She said that they're going to use all the power that they have available to them to hold Colonial Pipeline accountable, which is something that you would expect a public official to say, obviously. But again, this is just another. I forgot who I was talking with this about, but I remember just saying to someone the other day, I would not be surprised if Colonial had to revise their estimates again, and then it's like I spoke it into existence because it happened. So I mean, we don't even know the size of the spill, and worse off yet, we don't know if Colonial Pipeline even has the technology available to them to find out how big the spill actually was. I'm starting to believe that we could never find out,
Mhm.
the actual, the severity of this spill, because how can we trust Colonial's numbers at this point going forward? Like I just
Well,
don't
and how
understand.
can they even now, 8 months later, try to figure out how much was leaked 8 months ago? I mean, I know that it's been like a continual leak, and that there's ways that they can try to figure out approximately, just based on how much flows through the pipeline and how much, they lost, once it gets to the end. But it's been so long now, and their models are wrong, and they've had to revise it so many times. And it's like, do you even have the ability now that you've screwed it up so many times to go back and get accurate information? And I don't really think so. I don't know how you could possibly be able to go back now, after you screwed it up so many times, and try to get like a legitimate number. It seems like that is kind of an impossible task at this point. And it's really mind boggling to me that this is something that isn't getting more coverage. Again, I know that we've talked about this, and we've been trying to push the story as much as we can. I just reached out to Judah Friedlander. He posted something about Earth Day, and I'm like, dude, help us push the story. Like, just trying to get anybody to bring it up is really weird. Like, even Susan Sarandon, I reached out to her, and what's his name? The Hulk. What's his name?
Mark
Crap.
Ruffalo.
Yeah, that dude. They're supposed to be like environmentalists, and I don't know celebrities. I'm really sorry.
Right.
I'm really bad at
Whoa,
it.
sorry.
But yeah,
Well,
these people aren't talking about it. And like this is right up your alley. AOC, Green New Deal, Queen of the Green New Deal, not
yes.
talking about it. It's
Right.
really weird.
Right.
So
And it begs the question, how many times are they allowed to revise their numbers before they should be mandated to go kaput?
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, Jesse. I don't know the answer to that, but if I'm a federal regulator or a state regulator, I'm pissed off right now if you actually care about your job, because this is beyond ridiculous. I mean, 100% beyond ridiculous. And at this point, like I've said this before, and like I'm really starting to believe it. Like I know that this is pretty much like in our experience, this institution is pretty much toothless. But Colonial Pipeline, just for the bad PR alone, needs to be dragged in front of Congress for this, because this is ridiculous. And they've already been called out on their negligence of their pipe, not just by reporters like myself, but by federal regulators themselves, like the report that we covered last time I was on, where they're just killing them left and right, saying not only was the spill in Huntersville egregious, but so is your entire history of leaks and spills that your neglect caused and made worse than they had to be because you're just inept at everything that pertains to making sure your pipeline is safe. And you're right. This is something that needs to be a household story, because, like, I keep trying to beat this drum. People that care about Dakota Access, if we don't stop Colonial from doing what they're doing now and tighten up regulations now, in 20 years, Dakota Access, which isn't going anywhere, by the way, is going to look exactly like Colonial, and now we're going to have a huge problem. I mean,
Mhm.
look, in January, apparently, and I'm reading it from an article. This is from the Charlotte Observer. Actually, they picked up something that I missed. In January, to further determine the full extent of the spill, Colonial has said it deployed a technology similar to an X-ray or an MRI that, in part, uses ultraviolet light to find petroleum hydrocarbons on soil. Um, and so, basically, now that they're saying is that that method, uh, you know, isn't adequate in order to actually determine uh what kind of how deep the spill was. And nothing really makes sense with Colonial, and that's the thing, is that, like, why you can't really sit here and say that they're purposefully trying to cover something up. What you absolutely can say is that they are stumbling all over themselves and contradicting themselves all over the place, throughout reports, saying that, well, this is how deep it was, but then, oh, well, actually, went a little bit deeper than we thought. Speaking of the, the pollution in the groundwater, well, we used this technology that's super accurate, or this is like cutting edge technology, and then a couple months later, hey, this technology is no longer appropriate. It's just a bunch of, like, they don't, whatever it is, at the very least, this is negligence, at least in the sense of you guys are just completely inept, at not only preventing the leaks in your pipeline, but responding to them once they happen. And you can see just from all of the things that have transpired with Colonial over the last few months is that regardless of whatever else happens, Colonial Pipeline just was unprepared for anything like this, um, both from a leak detection standpoint and from a response standpoint. From a, you know, even the people writing up the reports, not being able to include all of the required information within the reports. I mean, you wrote a 1,600-page reports, and yet you still get hit with 22 violations for missing information within that report. What is going on? So that's where we stand here. And that's the headline out of all of this, is that the 1.2 million gallon, which is already the largest spill this century, and from what I've been able to, there's conflicting reports on these stats, I would just like to say, depending on where you read them. But I have read that this is the largest non-tanker related gasoline spill in U.S. history. Uh, and that was with the 1.2 million estimate. So I guess the headline here is that 1.2 million just got bigger.
Mhm.
The biggest pipeline spill of the last century just got bigger. We don't know how much bigger yet, and we don't know when that number will come in. It's possible Colonial could give an update to regulators via the phone or a private email that then they would release via a press release, or these new updated numbers might be within their next required report with the DEQ, which is April 26th. So we don't really know when these new numbers will come available, but you can bet your ass as soon as they do become available, I'll know about it, and I'll report on it. I mean, look, I've been bugging. Let's just say I've been bugging both PIMSA, the federal regulators, and the DEQ on a regular basis, um, for information. So as soon as information is available, I will have it, and then I'll make sure that I relay it to you guys and everybody else. Because look, we need the Susan Sarandons, the Mark Ruffalos, the AOCs, even the Sunrise Movement. Who look, I have major issues with a lot of the people that we need for help. But the way I also look at it is that if you're mad at my criticism, if you're more upset about my criticism of you than you are about this imminent issue that we have going on with the country, then you're not an activist, you're a poser.
No. I deal with that a lot too, though, because I need, like, as an Assange activist, I need those people too. And I don't like them and I don't want to need them, but they have massive platforms.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, you have to go and you have to get them to try to talk about the things that are going on, because they're the only ones that can get the information out. Mainstream media is not going to cover that shit. Mainstream media is not going to cover the Colonial Pipeline spill. That's not going to happen. They're owned by the people who own the Colonial Pipeline. So they're not.
The problem with celebrity activists, though, like Susan Sarandon and Mark Ruffalo, is that they really don't put any skin in the game until it's safe for them, PR-wise or career-wise. And they may very well know about this and know as much as we do, but they don't see it as popular enough or unaccepted enough crime, really, to speak out against an environmental crime.
We should give huge props to Lee Camp and Naomi Caravani. They have actually covered it. Huge props to them for doing that. I don't know that I've seen anybody else besides the MCSC network. I don't know that I've seen anybody else covering the story. So shout out to Lee and Naomi. They did great coverage on that. And, I love Lee anyways. So I'm just super glad that he picked up on the story and put it on his show. So we should give them a little props for that. I mean, I would love for like Jimmy Dore. Where's Jimmy Dore? Come on, Jimmy Dore. Cover the story. Like, he's always willing to go out on a limb and cover something that isn't popular. I mean, he's always willing to do that.
Right.
I mean, dude was debunking Russiagate and the gas attacks in Syria when that was not popular. Obviously, So yeah, I mean, I would love to get like a Jimmy Dore. Oh yeah. I'm gonna start bothering him. Be ready for me, Jimmy.
Well, first of all, big shout out to Jimmy Dore for one. Not just for covering my reporting on the Pelosi thing.
And he gave you credit.
But not even just that. I mean, really, the biggest shout out is that he fixed my fucking typos in the tweet, the original tweet. So he's an absolute legend for that. All right.
I bet that was Steph.
Even if he didn't do it, Steph is legendary too.
I'm legend. I love
whoever's responsible for that on the Jimmy Dore show.
Well,
you're so clutch.
You don't care that you get credit, but I care that you get credit, because I see stories get stolen from you all the time, and it pisses me off. And I know that you're very humble and you're not in it for like getting credit. I get that, Robbie. Don't even say it. No. I care.
I do want to say this. As a journalist, and I pride myself on like really only talking about stuff that I can prove. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm really usually very careful with the language that I use when I start making like borderline accusatory statements. I've learned my lesson with that in the past. So can I say that my work has been stolen? I can't really prove anything like that. What I can say, which is provable, is that I have broken many stories without getting credit for the break. And that I have, and that I can prove that with timestamps. That's just not me talking. Have I seen? I break a lot of news on Twitter. Not everything is worth an entire article to me. I also don't have the time to write an article over every little thing. Some things can be summed up in a couple of tweets. At most, so I usually
like you said, some things it's like you're just releasing information that maybe isn't really anything, but 2 months from now it might be something. So
some of it might just be like, hey, your Secretary of Energy just sold up to $600,000 in stock. That might not be groundbreaking news, but hey, I'm just letting you know about the little drip of money going into your elected officials' pockets. So there's little stuff like that. But have I seen like some of my tweets basically put in articles pretty much verbatim a couple of times? Is it enough to say that it was stolen? I mean, it depends on what kind of laws. Depends on what law student you ask, I guess. So I just want to make that clear.
I'll just say this to all the other journalists out there: if you come and you take Robbie's stories, we're gonna come for you. We're gonna come for you. We're gonna expose you for that. We're gonna make sure he gets credit.
We know where your children go to school.
Like you work really hard. Like people don't understand. You have like a crazy work schedule, you have a family, and then you're doing this stuff too, and you deserve to get credit for doing this work. And it's unfortunate that people aren't giving you due credit. So, you know, we've been trying to big up you. Yeah, it does, but it still pisses me off. Like, you be humble.
I've got
you
a
be humble,
small,
I'll be pissed.
yeah, I've got a smaller platform than a lot of people do. You know, like if I break story, I can't expect everybody to see it. Like I would love it if the bigger accounts, like the ones that I really respect at least, you know, have me on notifications. So when I broke something, it's like right there, but I can't expect that type of stuff really. There are, you know, sometimes I'm scooping major outlets by just a matter of minutes, as with the Pelosi stuff, or sometimes I'm scooping outlets by a couple of days, like I've done in the past, or like with the Colonial stuff. So, you know, I might not be, it gets hard, I guess, you know, and I'm not going to knock anybody with a platform of like 500,000 people, you know, to necessarily like comb through all of it to, even though there are ways you can find out who broke something on Twitter if you really wanted to look hard enough. But regardless of that,
it's called reading.
Yeah, well, it's just the search feature you can find out.
It really, yeah, it's super.
I mean,
easy.
that's what I do, honestly, because I don't want to put a breaking next to one of my tweets. If some other journalist has already, if somebody else has already broken, I don't want to take credit. I don't even want to give the illusion that I took the credit. Right? It's not my scoop. It's not my break. You know, it might be news, and I might put it as something that's new or something that's news. You know, but I'm trying to be careful with the breaking kind of, you know, term, just because, like, again, as an independent journalist, yes, I mean, there is that part of me that wants to remain humble, and it's like, no, I don't want to be the story. I want the story to be the story, and that's still true. But also, I mean, there is the part as being an independent journalist that's sitting in his bedroom doing this stuff and working 2 other jobs, right? Not to say I'm the only one that's doing that, but we sustain ourselves off of, you know, impressions, and you know, in the YouTube space or the Rockfin, in the video space, it's views, right? Subscribes and stuff. You know, in our space, in the reporter space, it's, you know, getting a scoop, you know, that, you know, gets a few million impressions could be a huge deal. You know, so sometimes, you know, yeah, you kind of like, damn, I really wish that I could have got credit for breaking that, because, you know, it really would have, I mean, because the person that did break that is, you know, running on all of these shows, and it's not necessarily like, damn, I wish I could, you know, be the like the celebrity or anything, but it's also like, you know, I want to be able to sustain what I'm doing. I want to do it better, and I want to do it in more efficient and better ways. I would love to do it full time, so I don't have to work these other 2 shitty minimum wage jobs that I have. You know, so when I think about it in that space, it can become frustrating, because it's like, man, because one story could make or break you in this business. And I'm not saying that I've broken anything that would have like landed me a job at the Times. Not that I would take it in a million years, because I definitely
would
kick
not. Your ass.
Yeah, no, but you know, just to say that
pipeline correspondent.
But I could, but you know, there's just, yeah, there's that thought. But then I always just have to kind of check the ego, like, you know what, you didn't get credit for this one. You know, you worked hard. You didn't. It just didn't work out. But you know what? And this goes not just for me, but for anybody in our space, because we're the little guys, right? We're gonna get stepped on and ignored by the big guys, going forward for forever. You just gotta keep your head down, and, like, you know what, there'll be another story, and it's not about you, right? And that's the way I just try to keep. I just think about it that way, and then it's on to the next one. I try not to dwell on it. And, you know,
yeah.
like I said,
well,
there are times where it gets frustrating.
Like, Kevin Gastoli told him that you just keep doing the work that you're doing, and eventually they won't be able to ignore you anymore. If you just work, if you just do the work, eventually they won't. Like, they'll have to acknowledge you at some point.
I mean, it's just a passion thing. Like I said, I wish I could do this as a job, right? I wish I could support my family doing this. You know, so I didn't have to do the other crap that I have to do, and that's a dream. Like, that's something I would love, and, you know, to that end, you know what I mean? Like I said, I guess the only way to make that happen is that you have to have there has got to be some kind of credibility, recognition, you know, going into that, you know. So, I mean, yeah, that I guess that's the only reason why I get frustrated from time to time, or have in the past. But I've just learned to keep my frustrations to myself now, instead of trying to put them on Twitter or something, and with like a snarky tweet where it can be like misconstrued.
I could learn things from you.
Well,
all my snark comes out on Twitter.
I think think your reaction to me is plagiarism of your work, but I think your reaction is fair enough. But we should be concerned about what it means in terms of independent media, but especially independent media like what we're trying to do, like still trying to break through, so to speak, for lack of a better term. And I'm just speaking for you, the important work you're doing, if the credit gets taken away from you and the sourcing gets obfuscated and words get changed around a little bit and it's done by MSNBC, for example, that's a problem because it's basically trying to scrub out independent media,
Well,
especially
it's like a theft of labor, essentially. I mean, it's stealing your work. I mean, and I know you work really hard, so that's why I get really frustrated, and that's why I get pissy when people steal your work because I know how hard you work. Again, not only carrying 2 other jobs, but then doing this stuff all the time, and you're always breaking shit, and then people are picking up on it and using it in their articles and not giving due credit, and that's just frustrating to me because it's okay to use other people's work if you credit them, but stealing somebody's work is a super shitty thing to do.
It's also a really easy
know,
thing to do in the social media space. I mean, you could just see something and then just make your own tweet, and pretend like it was your original thought. I mean, it happens with memes, it happens with news.
I can tell you my tweets get stolen all the time. I don't care. It's just a tweet, but my tweets get stolen all the time.
Yeah,
funny.
and there's no
Really
there's
funny.
no integrity for sourcing in journalism anymore. Just look at CNN.
Right.
Read one of their articles. Just pick any one at random that has to do with domestic or foreign policy, and they never name a source. It's American official said, or so. I love my favorite is sources close to the event say.
Yes.
What does that mean? Like some dude who was walking down the street when it happened?
It means that a CIA agent told them to write, and that's their source.
It could be anything from a CIA agent to literally the waiter at the table. You know what I mean? That the paparazzi's like, okay, talk to him after they leave. Like it could have been any of that or anything in between. And that's what I was like, journalism has been boiled down to 100%. Like it's TMZ all the time. Like CNN is TMZ basically at this point. For the last 5 years, like the chyron at the bottom of their screen has read something like source. Trump sticks French fries in mayonnaise, refuses to get nude in shower or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's what news has become. And it's accepted as fact. And now for the next 4 years, it's going to be okay. President Trump wears shorts in the shower. They see him outright. You stick your French fries in mayonnaise. Blah blah blah.
A great example of that is the video that Jimmy Dore
that
did
we
with
would even
Aaron
care
Matei.
about that.
No, but it's the you have to go watch the Jimmy Dore Aaron Matei video of the Russiagate stuff because that's a great example of what we're talking about here. It's like the best of like the most ridiculous Russiagate headlines and stories, and it is so seeing it all. Like I obviously over the past 5 years I've been calling out Russiagate and it's all been bullshit. But when you see all of these headlines and all of this, I mean, it's the most ridiculous stuff. But when you put it all together in like a compilation, it's so funny.
And it's completely funny. And here's the thing is that so many people bought it hook, line, and sinker without a shred of credible evidence or anyone of note going on the record.
And made a lot of book money off of it.
Yeah.
We
Seth
are
Abramson
so
is still making money
screwed.
off.
Michael Isikoff.
Yes, we're so screwed because so many people bought into it. Look at what they're doing with China now. They're doing this. It's Chinagate is Russiagate. They're doing the exact same thing, and people are just buying into it, not even questioning it. Like progressives are like, "Oh my God, China is evil," and I'm like, "Well, who told you that?" So you trust the deep state now? You trust the establishment? You trust Rachel Maddow and all these people? Seriously, you guys? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. How many times does your government get to lie to you before your sense of skepticism kicks in? I say that all the time. I'm still wondering, like, when is that going to happen for people? It's just ridiculous.
So this just drives home the point, guys. Support independent journalism. And not only that, get away from access journalism, get away from access journalists, because that's where you're going to get your source, anonymous source. That's where all of those stories are going to come from. Wannabe access journalists. People that.
And if you see an independent journalist sliding into that, because a lot of them have, call them the fuck out. Call them out.
Document-based reporting. Document-based reporting. That is what I try to drive home. You don't have to wonder who the source is. If the source is a piece of verifiable paper or
source
form,
documentation,
or if a receipt, you can't argue with the receipt. The receipt says what it says, and that's one thing I pride my. If I am proud of anything, it's that I take the time to try my best to source hard documentation to back up anything I report. So you don't have to argue with me. You can argue with the FEC because that's where I got the information from, or whatever. And that's what journalism has gotten away from. It's the WikiLeaks model, which is what I wanted to model myself out of. When my biggest inspiration, that's what kind of made me want to be a journalist, because I was like, this is how you're supposed to do it. When I saw them, like, okay, well, you don't have to argue with WikiLeaks credibility because they're just releasing what they have. They're releasing the documents, and the full docs are get the fuck out. Right. That was the saying that I heard, and it stuck with me. And so that's what I wanted to model how I do my journalism. I don't like doing opinion piece. Yeah. So a free Assange for one, you fascist fucks. But but still,
don't get me started.
From an independent journalist perspective, and anybody watching this, I encourage to get away from access journalism. Get more towards people that want to give you the receipt, instead of just giving you a anonymous source. Sometimes that kind of journalism is necessary when you're dealing with public officials. I get that. But when you overdo it, it becomes boy who cries wolfish, and you never know when to believe what, and you're just basically ruining journalism as a whole, because now you've just not only have you burned your own credibility, you've burned everybody's credibility. You're making us all look stupid. So those of us that are actually trying to do like real good work are getting looked at with a side eye, because so many journalists are so ego driven and access driven that they go out of their way to find a story where there isn't one, and try to placate to the people that they're running their story on, like the subjects of their story, which you're not supposed to do. So yeah, man, we're at a crossroads with journalism. We're in a crossroads in a lot of areas. We're in a big spot. But real quick before I go, guys, you mentioned at the beginning, and I want to bring this up too. For anybody watching, we are doing I feel like I know it's definitely going to be on Earth Day, but it might even be the day before as well. We're doing a big tweet storm, basically trying to get attention of anybody that'll listen, regarding the Colonial Pipeline incident in North Carolina that we covered earlier tonight. We encourage anybody that is active on Twitter during that time to just follow us, and keep, anytime you see a post, make your own posts. We'll have some hashtags floating around at the time. I'm going to make sure that every article I've written is going around. So if you want to copy paste that, there's also, other articles written by other outlets, NC Policy Watch, the Charlotte Observer, News and Observer. It doesn't have to just be my reporting. It's just the important thing is that we get the story out. So, like I said, that'll be on Earth Day. It's going to be going on pretty much all day. We understand people, aren't available to just sit around on Twitter all day, like I might be able to every once in a while. So,
but even
just whatever.
Just if you pop on and send out like a couple tweets, like hit up Susan Sarandon, hit up Mark Ruffalo, hit up AOC, anybody that is in the environmentalism sphere, Bill McKibben, Sunrise Movement, and all of those people.
We want to hijack
George Clooney isn't on Twitter.
We want to hijack the Earth Day hashtag.
Yeah, too busy with
Earth Day hashtag. We want to make our own hashtags, but definitely use the Earth Day hashtag to get the story out. And definitely, like you said, Misty, that's important. That's the best. That's the goal, right? Tag the Mark Ruffalo's, to Susan Sarandon's. If you're a fan of Sunrise Movement or AOC or Bernie Sanders, any of these politicians that are supposed to care about issues like this, that's who we need. Those are the people that we need to know about this issue, because those are the people with the platforms large enough to create. Possibly create a small wave of public pressure that we can then grow into something that we can actually use to pressure politicians to actually make real change. So this is how it all starts. We're just attempting to draw some attention to it. So again, April 22nd, Earth Day, Colonial Pipeline tweet storm, all of us at the MCSC Network family, myself, Jesse, Misty, Nico, Convo Couch, Slow News Day, Steve, Glory, everybody,
Franco.
right? We're all going to be doing Franco as well. Yep. So we encourage everybody to join us on that. And yeah, man. I guess.
Well, let everybody know they can find you on Twitter, so they can keep an eye out for those tweets, and they can find you on Rockfin. I know it's probably it's probably the same, right? Is it just Rob Leto Fire?
Yep,
right?
Rob Leto Fire, ROBLETO Fire on both Twitter and on Rockfin. I do my shit talking and a lot of little quick breaking news on Twitter. I do my articles on Rockfin. And before I go, as always, if you guys have any time tonight and you need something to do, I encourage you to read up about 5 or 10 minutes on the effects of autism, specifically in children, so we can build a more educated, accepting, and inclusive environment for our neurodiverse brothers and sisters out there. But other than that, guys, I'm done for the night. I appreciate you having me on to talk about all this stuff, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
Always good
absolutely. We love having you on. You're one of our favorite people, so you're welcome back anytime. And thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget the Earth Day tweet storm, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.